We are kicking off today with WWE, as it was recently reported that the PG era was officially over, as the new era launched at WrestleMania sees WWE go in a different direction. While this previous era is over, WWE will still be subject to PG regulations, but what exactly does this mean for the promotion in 2024? Speaking on Fightful Select's Q&A podcast, Sean Ross Sapp stated that even if a show is officially rated PG, the content and tone is influenced by sponsors' expectations. It was added that wrestling can include kid-friendly storylines that don't insult the intelligence of older audiences, but that sponsors will play a significant role in defining what's appropriate. While WWE may officially be rated PG, the actual direction of the programming is shaped by a combination of sponsor guidelines, audience expectations, and the creative team's vision. Even with the PG rating intact, WWE is incorporating different kinds of mature content into their product, so even if the rating stands, it shouldn't be a problem for older fans. But what do you make of all this? Do you still feel WWE's PG era might eventually end for good? Let us know in the comments section below. Speaking of major changes, WWE will host Night 2 of its draft on tonight's episode of Raw, but the format for this year's draft is different from the past. In previous drafts, superstars from Raw and SmackDown competed, with the winner's brand earning a random pick, but that isn't the format being used this year. During the Q&A podcast, Sapp reported that while this may be more entertaining, WWE wanted to emulate a real draft and also wanted to start from scratch. He added, "Raw superstar versus SmackDown superstar, winner earns a pick for their brand, find that more entertaining than the current format. Well, they wanted to start from scratch, they wanted to emulate a real draft more, and also, technically, there is no one on the brands to have compete in that manner." Sapp's concluding point is that in the draft pool, everyone should technically be free agents, therefore it wouldn't make sense for them to represent a brand in competition. The new rosters will come into effect after this Saturday's Backlash France PLE, and which draft format do you prefer? Let us know down in the comments. The last time fans saw MJF in the ring, it was at AEW World's End, and he's since been recovering from the many injuries he accumulated during his record-shattering AEW World title reign. Fans are eager to see MJF back in the ring, but that doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon, judging from a recent photo at a convention. In a photo with superfan Brock Lesnar guy, MJF can be seen wearing a sling, dampening expectations that his return is right around the corner. On his Q&A podcast, Sean Ross Sapp reiterated that fans should not expect MJF back just yet, saying that he believes it'll still be a few more months before he returns. Just in case it needed saying, Sapp indicated that MJF is not in the cards as Strickland's next challenger, with that opponent set to be revealed on this week's AEW Dynamite. It's been reported that MJF has undergone shoulder surgery after non-invasive rehabilitation wasn't doing the job, and details remain elusive as to what direction AEW will go next. MJF picked up several injuries during his reign as champion, but fought through the pain to represent the company, and we're continuing to wish him a speedy recovery. More injury news from AEW as Julia Hart lost the TNT Championship at Dynasty, and now the House of Black member is on the shelf once again. While details regarding the nature of Hart's injury remain undisclosed, early indications suggest that she may require surgery, and therefore, she's not slated for upcoming AEW events. With so few details about her injury, it's hard to say how long she'll be out of action for, but for now, don't expect the former AEW TBS champion on our television screens. After a strong start in AEW upon joining in 2020, Miro's career has flatlined in the All Elite promotion, and currently the former TNT champion is out with an injury. As Tony Khan explained on the AEW Revolution media call, Miro, alongside Keith Lee, was pulled from the Meat Madness match due to the issue, and that match was eventually nixed. While speaking on Fightful Select's Q&A podcast, Sean Ross Sapp reported that AEW hoped Miro would have made his in-ring return a few months ago, but he is behind schedule. Miro vows to come back stronger than ever despite his injury, but with his most recent match being at World's End, there's no word on when we'll see him return. Miro is also dealing with the end of his marriage to CJ Perry, and what do you make of this situation? How do you feel about his AEW run? Sound off down in the comments. One name fans can still see on AEW programming is Adam Copeland, as the two-time and current TNT champion is ready to put the title on the line once again. Copeland will be bringing back his Cope Open on this week's edition of AEW Dynamite in Winnipeg, and we already have an idea as to who will be going for the gold. On last week's AEW Collision, Malachi Black stated that either Brody King or Buddy Matthews would be accepting and plan to bring the title to the House of Black. Matthews specifically mentioned Winnipeg in the promo, saying, "You'll find out when the rest of the world finds out," leaving some to speculate that he'll be the one to face Copeland. Copeland and his allies lost to the House of Black Dynasty, and this will be a chance for payback, but if he's not careful, we could see a new TNT champion crowned in a matter of days. AEW Rampage news now, as a backstage brawl broke out during the most recent episode of the show, but thankfully for Tony Khan, this was a brawl that was meant to happen. In the opening match, Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor had a parking lot brawl, with everything from trash can lids to screwdrivers and the hoods of parked cars being used as weapons. This became an increasingly bloody affair as the match went on, and Taylor was about to win with a pile driver on a car hood, but Trent countered with a low blow and pile driver of his own. Trent got the submission victory, and after the match, struck Chuck's already injured ankle with a metal wrench to add insult to injury. The pair were once best friends, but that time is a thing of the past, and it'll be interesting to see what comes next in this feud after this parking lot brawl on Rampage. As we all know by now, Tony Khan was attacked by the Elite and Jack Perry on last week's Dynamite, but this is hardly the first time a wrestling authority has been targeted. In WCW, the NWO made their name by targeting whoever they wanted, and even Eric Bischoff was attacked before it was revealed he was a member of the group. On his 83 Weeks podcast, Bischoff discussed the Elite and Perry's actions and the comparison some have made to the NWO. He said, "They say imitation is a form of flattery, not so much in this case. If they would have made it a parody of how the NWO started in my scene in Baltimore where I got jackknife powerbombed off the stage and all that, if they would have set this whole scene up as a parody last night, I probably would have been all about it. I would have enjoyed it. At least it would have been entertaining." Bischoff didn't stop there, said that the angle on Dynamite resembled something you'd see on SNL, and said it was really sad of AEW to treat it so seriously. Eazy-E went on to say that Dynamite is without a doubt the worst, most horribly produced wrestling show that is on primetime, possibly in all of history. Bischoff's criticism of the angle is no surprise, as he's been highly critical of AEW for years, and we'll have to see what AEW does next following this attack on the boss. As we reported yesterday, Drew McIntyre has signed a new contract with WWE, putting to rest any speculation that he'd be leaving once his previous deal expired in June. McIntyre's signing even led to The Rock gifting the Scottish Warrior a Claymore sword, and now much more has come to light about this new deal. PW Insider reports that there was a lot of back and forth during the negotiations between the two sides, but McIntyre has signed what's described as a multi-year big money deal. One source added that the deal is for 3 years, and it's noted that McIntyre and WWE only came to terms on a new deal about 2 to 3 days ago. The video from The Rock, which revealed McIntyre had re-signed, was actually filmed in advance, so WWE had something they could put out once they finalized negotiations. Both sides are said to be extremely happy with the new deal, but despite this huge score for WWE, fans shouldn't expect McIntyre on TV in the near future. The report adds that Drew won't be back on TV immediately, as he is still recovering from his badly hyperextended elbow that he suffered at WrestleMania 40. McIntyre received a lot of respect for working through the injury during WWE's recent UK tour, and this will no doubt bode well for his future prospects in the company. Hopefully McIntyre will be healed up in time for Clash at the Castle Scotland on June 15th, as fans in the UK are hoping to see the Scottish Warrior on the card in his homeland. In March, Mercedes Mone officially joined AEW, but despite being a regular on screen, fans have yet to see the CEO compete in the ring just yet. Mone's first match for AEW will likely be at Double or Nothing on May 26th, over a year after her previous match, but that isn't a shock to those in the company. On his Fightful Select Q&A, Sean Ross Sapp said that upon learning of her signing, he was told by AEW sources that she wouldn't be wrestling until Double or Nothing. Mone's debut match will be against TBS champion Willow Nightingale, the woman she faced last May in the match that saw Mone suffer a serious leg injury. Fans are eager to see how Mone fares in an AEW ring, and the wait is almost over, and it remains to be seen if the CEO will be the next TBS champion. The last time fans saw Roman Reigns, it was at WrestleMania 40, but the Tribal Chief continues to make an impression, even outside the world of WWE. During an NBA playoff match between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Denver Nuggets, Reigns' theme song played in the arena, a testament to how significant he has become. Reigns voluntarily pulled himself from the draft, and he's not expected back in WWE until later this year, when he'll have to face WWE's new era and a new bloodline led by Solo Sikoa. More from AEW Rampage now, as the latest show was hosted following last week's AEW Collision, and Tony Khan was able to make an appearance after the bumper tapings. Following Rampage, Khan, still wearing his neck brace, was on the ramp, and after some dancing by Daniel Garcia, was inspired to bust out some moves of his own. The AEW president was seen wincing in pain, selling the effects of the attack on Dynamite, but this was a fun moment that the fans at the Collision Rampage taping didn't see coming. From 2016 to 2021, Charlie Arnold was part of WWE's team of correspondents as Charlie Caruso, and since leaving the promotion, she's joined UFC in a similar role. At the recent UFC Vegas 91 event, Arnold worked the show in a much different role, as when the regular announcer Joe Martinez felt under the weather, the WWE alum was asked to fill in. Arnold did just that, and in doing so became the first female cage announcer in UFC history, a milestone that was part of a cool night, as Arnold reflected on social media. With WWE and UFC under TKO's umbrella, we can't count out a return to the former for Charlie Arnold, but for now, she's happy to be making history inside the Octagon. This past week, Matt Riddle was set to compete for Northeast Wrestling, but the King of Bros didn't make the show, but he had a good reason for being missing. On Twitter, the Northeast Wrestling account shared that Riddle and his girlfriend were rushed to the hospital for a serious medical condition, which meant he couldn't work the show. It's unknown what issue affected Riddle and/or his girlfriend Misha Montana, but it was clearly very serious, and we're wishing them both the very best after this ordeal. When Chad Gable turned heel a few weeks ago, fans immediately compared this upcoming run to Kurt Angle, and this isn't the first time Chad's been compared to his fellow Olympian. On last week's Raw, the comparisons to Kurt continued as Chad berated his Alpha Academy allies, and it's been reported that he'll soon be working with Brutus and Julius Creed. During his Kurt Angle show, the Olympic gold medalist was asked about Gable and the comparisons made to himself and the Raw superstar. He said, "Well listen, the Kurt Angle formula worked the first time. The Kurt Angle formula will work today. I've noticed, I've been watching Chad, and he's doing a lot of actions that Kurt Angle used to do, different characteristics, different facial expressions, taking off his singlet before he does his finish. He has been doing the angle slam and the ankle lock. I feel like this is a rebirth of Kurt Angle." When news of Gable's potential teaming with the Creeds broke, many fans compared it to Team Angle, which saw Kurt team with Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin. Gable is fixated on winning the Intercontinental title, and this new heel turn may be what gets him the win, but what do you make of the comparisons to Kurt Angle? Let us know below. More from Raw, as tonight won't just be the second night of the draft, but will also be the go-home Raw before WWE Backlash France, where Jey Uso will have a golden opportunity. Main event Jey will challenge World Heavyweight Champion Damian Priest in Lyon, but fans will get the chance to see the two collide tonight in a six-man tag match. The bout will see the Judgment Day's Priest, JD McDonough, and Finn Balor take on Jey, Andrade, and Ricochet in what could be a turning point for the heel faction. The Judgment Day has been at odds as of late, and won't have Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio at ringside, as both are currently out with injuries. A loss to the faces could send Priest over the edge, and Jey will be looking to build momentum ahead of one of the biggest matches of his career this Saturday in France. When AJ Styles returned to WWE programming not too long ago, he was considerably more jacked thanks to a rigorous exercise regime during his hiatus from the ring. The new physique of Styles hasn't gone unnoticed by fans or those in wrestling, and Kevin Nash would like to see a certain name from AEW undergo a similar transformation. On his Click This podcast, Nash said that Will Ospreay should try to get into a more impressive shape, especially if the Brit is going to be AEW's star attraction. Nash argued that Ospreay looks too much like an indie guy, and if AEW plans on coronating Will at All In, as some have speculated, then he needs to look in better condition. Nash made clear that Ospreay is fun to watch, and despite his comments about Will needing to tack on mass, said he'd love to see the Brit be the smaller guy against a bigger opponent. Nash would love to see Ospreay against someone of Brock Lesnar's size, and do you think he'd benefit by getting bigger? Sound off in the comments section. And we're ending today with the Grizzled Young Veterans, as the tag team of James Drake and Zach Gibson made their AEW debuts on last week's episode of Collision. The inaugural WWE UK Tag Team Champions were impressive, but ended up losing to the Acclaimed, which came shortly after they made their TNA debuts at January's Hard to Kill. On Fightful Select's Q&A podcast, Sean Ross Sapp was asked about Drake and Gibson and made clear that right now the pair are not signed to AEW. In a backstage interview after their loss, the grizzled young veterans blamed Billy Gunn being at ringside and vowed that this isn't the last fans have seen of them in AEW. That may indeed be the case, but for now, the British duo are not all elite, though that could change in due time if they continue to put on impressive matches.